To the Irish NFL show. We're coming to you today from Ballymount, Dublin 12. Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary, welcome in, lads. It's good to have you here. Another week closer to the season. Everyone feeling good? You missing the football, Brian?
American football?
Well, soccer. You missing it, yeah?
I'm missing a lot of sports at the moment, Michael. It's a tough hell. We would have had a World Cup to look forward to. This time of year, unfortunately.
Like 20 years ago, Brian. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you mean in general? It's going to be that Christmas World Cup's going to be mad because the NFL's on at the same time. That's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, well, my focus will be on the NFL. It's quite something being from Cork and being from Ireland. It's let's say don't have to worry too much about the gas season. Don't have to worry too much about the World Cup.
Well, we'll see what happens. Now, I'm more obviously going to talk about the football, but there are a few games that overlap, so I can't wait to see that there. I know England play the USA on the day after Thanksgiving, so Brian's going to have a mad few days there.
That'd be a heavy few days.
It'll be a good crack. On this show today, we're going to look at a couple of team situations. We're going to look at hot seats in terms of quarterbacks, and we're also going to link in a wee bit with head coaches. And we're going to start off with the only one we can really start off, and that's Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones now, what's his third season in New York?
Fifth, Michael.
Fifth? Wow. Would any other team give a quarterback like Daniel Jones 5 years?
Well, it's probably a testament to a number of things. One, he had a serious neck injury.
He did.
And then there was the change, obviously, in terms of the general manager. I think if the Giants hadn't changed, or had the change come earlier, then they may have changed QBs earlier. For Daniel Jones, some of it is he should never have gone at 6, right? Like, he should never have gone at 6. There was crazy expectation because of that, and that's probably why equally there was the expectation, but equally the fifth season, they're running it back because they kind of, I guess, you're rolling the dice. Maybe somewhere out of nowhere it'll work, but I think the Giants are doing this with one eye on next year, surely, Brian.
Yeah, he's had 3 head coaches. This will be his 3rd head coach, and he's had 4 offensive coordinators, and this is the 4th system he's had to learn. And people can say, other quarterbacks can quickly pick up this stuff. The reality is it's a difficult situation for him. He's also been very injury plagued. I mean, he hasn't played a full season yet. He gets injured. He gets injured because he puts his head in the wrong place at the wrong time. He hasn't realised quickly in the NFL that the clock needs to go off, and he has to put himself down, or in the pocket he gets the ball stripped out very easily. His stats don't lie. I think he'll have a good season under this new head coach, Brian Dable. Will it be enough to save him in terms of his career to Giants? No. For me, he has to have an MVP season.
Really?
Yes, he really does. Because if he has a middle to the top, say he's 10th best quarterback in the league,
right,
and they don't make the playoffs, then the Giants' narrative will be a bit like the Broncos. So we've got a strong side, we've done really well, we've had a reasonably good season, we're a quarterback away from being a really good team. And next year the Giants have in the region of 70 million cap space. So we were fortunate to have Joe Shane on recently. He's done a massive rebuild in a short period. He's essentially got rid of all the dead wood. He's got rid of the cap situation. And next year he's got the fruits of his work with an opportunity to be really aggressive in free agency. And I do trust the new GM and the new head coach to go and get the right players next year, as opposed to a GM over the past 4 or 5 years who's just brought in players at the back end of their career on big contracts, which isn't fruitful when you want to build a team in the long term. So he would have to have a really strong season to be the quarterback next year because of the 4.
MVP?
If he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, build a statue to Brian Dable there and then, right? Put it outside the stadium, because I think he can have a good year, but to me, a very, very good year for Daniel Jones would be that he was the 15th or 16th best in the league. I don't see it. I don't see him being better than that. And I do think the Giants either make a move in free agency next year or will be drafting.
Time will tell. They've got obviously Brian Dable coming in. He was the OC in the Buffalo Bills. Great offense to learn from there. I guess for Daniel Jones, it's going to be how he starts that season off and his mental capacity as well. I mean, Brian, that schedule for the Giants, the first 5 games, Titans, okay, the Panthers, fair enough. The Cowboys, okay, I'll give you the Bears. The Packers in London, which is a neutral game almost, which it won't be because it'll be like 40,000 Packers fans there. that's like, I just can't see how he's gonna.
Well, see, Michael,
Get
I'd argue that one, because if you look at the schedule as a whole, they play the Panthers, they play the Falcons, they play the Jags, they play the Texans, they play the Lions. The Giants could win games next year. No, them teams will be saying the exact same team. We're playing the Giants. There's winnable games there.
If he replicates his first season, over 3,000 passing yards, 24 touchdowns in his rookie season, if he can replicate that, will he be there next year?
Yeah, but, well, no, he won't be. He won't be, because what I'd say, if we're going to replicate that season, then you're going to have Saquon Barkley, who had over 3,000 yards that season combined between catching and running, and he caught over 90 balls. He was really effective in his fourth season. For him to have a really good season, Saquon Barkley has to come back and have a really good season.
So it sounds like Pete Carroll can have a quarterback next year then, if Daniel Jones is available, yeah? We'll see what happens.
Sorry, one more. There'll be a quarterback next year that we don't believe now will be available, and that's where the Giants can make a trade. So, look, okay, we probably knew Russell Wilson, but there will be, every season is different. There'll be quarterbacks this year that we feel are locked in for the future, and for one reason or another will become available next year, and the Giants, I imagine, will go in and make a trade.
That could start a whole different show off there now. We can start talking about that.
There's other quarterbacks who are in a similar situation that we're going to come to now.
It's the summer of Tua in Miami. He has a new coach. He's been given everything. He's been given the keys to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, as far as I'm concerned. And this is it. Very much like Daniel Jones, it's the season for him now, and he has to do something. I think the Dolphins will finish second in the AFC East. And we'll talk about maybe the rest of the division in August. But there's no reason why they can't finish second or even challenge for the division. However, I think the Bills are too far ahead. I think that's not going to be enough because of the AFC. So where do the Dolphins stand? Did they continue with Tua there, or did they try and bring in Tom Brady, or a 47-year-old, or whatever he is now, Tom Brady next season, or what's the plan? Because apparently that's all been confirmed. That was actually the plan. So if you're Tua sitting there, Colin, you're going, does this team really believe in me?
Well, what I will say in fairness to Tua was there was a lot of talk last year during the year about even replacing him then, and they might have brought in Watson during the season last year, and Tua just got on with it. And in fairness, that's a testament to him. The issue, I think, with Tua is just the arm strength, and if he can't throw deep, then you have to scheme around him. Now, bringing in Mike McDaniel, I actually think is a great move for the Dolphins, because I do think he will scheme, and it will allow, you expect to see a lot more in the running game, and it will allow Tua. They brought in, people on the offensive line. So Tua it won't all be on Tua, but Tua, there is a huge amount of pressure and expectation. Stephen Ross, we know, isn't very patient. He wants to win. So I think there are huge expectations on Tua, and bringing in Tyreek Hill means that they will expect him to perform. I don't know if Tua has the physical capabilities to be a real elite quarterback in the NFL, and particularly in the AFC, and that's Tua's problem in some ways. If Tua was in the NFC, it might be a little bit easier on him, but he's not. He's in the AFC, he's going up against everyone else, and it will be very, very difficult. He undoubtedly has talent, he undoubtedly has heart, but if you don't have a deep ball in today's NFL, it's very difficult.
Terran Armstead there as well. They've really put the chips around him, and how long do you give it? Do you give him the whole season?
Yeah, well, it's the whole season, because there's not really any backup there that can step in really and deliver. They're a really strong side, and they're in a similar position. If it comes 12 months' time, they have a season like they had 2 years ago in the Blind Flowers, where they had 10-6, and they don't make the playoffs, 17 games now. But if they have a similar type of scenario where they just miss out, the narrative will straight away be, if only we had a quarterback at a higher ceiling than Tua, we would make the playoffs. Tua is a good quarterback in his own right. We had Matt Verderame on last week, and he said the problem for Tua is he's always going to be compared with Joe Burrow and Herbert, because they came out of the same draft. He is a good quarterback, and I think if he was to be released or made available for trade next year, there'll be other teams that will make a go at him. But it's hard to know right now what we say. We saw people last week, the media speculate about, in training camp he's doing long throws, they look great, but the reality is, as we spoke,
it's silly season.
Yeah,
it's silly season. But what I meant was, could we see Ryan Fitzpatrick make a miraculous return from retirement at some point? That's what I meant. I don't know. It's silly season, and some of the things I seen that about the lot, like he's throwing balls down the field. That's great. I mean, are they even wearing pads yet at this point? Like,
Well, I'll give you one, Michael. Like I spoke to Colin separately about this, and I kind of suggested last one to be a quarterback available next year that no one believes. Lamar Jackson, right? We've got contract situation here as well, but Kyler Murray. But Lamar Jackson, whatever you say, he is upsetting the Ravens. You know, it's an unusual situation. Most quarterbacks want to get paid immediately, secure the money. To get injured, they've made their money already. He's gone the other way. He doesn't want to sign a contract. At some stage, the Ravens will say, enough's enough. Yeah. And maybe they'll make him available for a trade next year. He went to Louisville College. He's not from Miami itself, but he's from the Florida area. That would make sense next year if they're close to being a team that, you know, needs to make a step up with a quarterback, Lamar Jackson. The Giants would potentially be in as a suitor for Lamar Jackson. He's the kind of guy next year, if he doesn't sign this contract this season, that could be the guy that everybody's going after next summer.
Granted, it wasn't a 17-game stretch, but I seen Huntley play in Baltimore with the Ravens last year. Surely they're sitting now, and then it would probably bring somebody else in as well, but maybe the Ravens are just taking their time and going, eh.
Well, I think the Ravens would like to get it done with Lamar, but he isn't signing. You know, I guess he backs himself, and he wants to see. Obviously, they would presumably use the franchise tag and look to get something for him. And if a quarterback like Lamar Jackson came on the market, they would get quite a bit. So yeah, Brian certainly has a point about that could be an unexpected QB who is available next year. If they have to tag him and then he says I won't play on the tag, they would have to trade him. And look, Lamar Jackson is an unbelievable QB. There would be any number of suitors for him.
Take him to New York, Brian.
Take him tomorrow, yeah, absolutely. He'll play.
You drive him over yourself.
He'll play on that tag because the tag next year is in the region of 38 to 40 million. So I'd imagine he would play on that tag.
Ryan Tannehill has lost. Well, the Titans have lost for Rashawn Evans and AJ Brown. Now, granted, they brought it. Was it Burks at wide receiver in the draft? A lot of people speculating that this is the season that they start to make that step down a bit. I don't know. I'm really torn on how the Titans are going to do. What's your thoughts? I mean, this is probably Tannehill's last year, isn't it?
Well, it's Tannehill's last year if he doesn't have a really good year, because he essentially threw their playoff chances away. He talked in then the off season how it affected him. He didn't sleep for weeks. He kept thinking about it, but he hasn't helped himself. A few years ago, when Drew Lock was drafted, Joe Flacco was asked about, mentoring Drew Lock, and he said, "Not my job," and he got an awful lot of flack over it. And all he would have had to say is, "Yeah, I'll do that." He didn't necessarily have to do it; he just had to say he'd do it. But Tannehill watched Flacco take all that flack. And he went and he did the exact same thing. Literally the exact same thing. The same question. Will you mentor the young QB who's just been drafted? No, that's not my job.
But there was a lot more. I found there was a lot more sort of media focus. Maybe it's because it's this time of year. There was a lot of media focus on Tannehill in comparison to that whole Flacco situation, and the whole sort of fallout from it is very interesting.
The Titans are a playoff team, and they have Mike Vrabel. They have a great coach of the year. So I think that's why there was more focus than the Broncos and Flacco, who were nobodies at that stage. Realistically, that's the reality of the situation, and that's why the focus was there. And I just thought, if he had just said, "Yeah, I will," everyone would have moved on. Nobody would have talked about it. It was a silly mistake. He's made silly mistakes on the field, off the field. It's a big year for Ryan Tannehill.
He's earning 30 million this year. It's a significant amount of money towards the cap, so you can understand why Titans fans are getting a little bit frustrated. Colin is right. He threw away that playoff game. In the playoff game, the first play of the game against the Bengals was an interception. The last play of the game was an interception when they're driving to get into field goal range to kick a winning field goal. And yeah, he doesn't lend himself to the situation by coming out with silly comments like that. Just say what you don't say. We've seen head coaches and GMs time and time again say the obvious thing, not the right thing. And we all know it's all spoofology. But they're saying what they need to say to keep everybody on the same page. He doesn't say that. He says he's not going to help the young quarterback, who's a third-round pick anyway. But because for so long everybody felt Malik Willis would go in the first round, they still have kind of high hopes for him. And he didn't turn up for the OTAs. I know it's optional, but he didn't turn up. He continuously came out about he had to go seek counselling after that game, which was a difficult loss. I can understand that side of things. And then the OTAs, everybody felt he would be getting back in. He would be leading by example, saying, "Look, guys, we were number one seed for a reason. Let's focus on next season." and he didn't show up. So I can totally understand as to why Titans fans are disgruntled. Yeah, I think he's a make or break year for Titans.
Insert Mike Vrabel meme here. I think the whole AJ Brown rookie wide receiver thing is a huge gamble. It's either going to pay off in huge dividends, or it's going to be uh-oh territory. Talking about uh-oh territory, we're going to go to Brian's favourite quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles. As of June the 11th, when this is being recorded, they're going to win the NFC East as it stands. Yeah, like what they have done, and huge year for Hurts though as well. It's sort of similar situation to what we're talking about. He has to perform as well. What gets Hurts over the line for the Eagles? Do you think it's the NFC East and a playoff appearance, or what? You know.
Well, I think it's that, but it's also the performance level, right? Hurts has to show that he can do it. He's entering year 3, and in fairness to Hurts, he wasn't a first-round pick, but it is a huge year for him. It's a prove-it year. In fairness to Howie, who gets a lot of abuse at times and will never get over the Jalen Reagor pick, he has done a phenomenal job this offseason, right? The Eagles have put the weapons, have put the protection around Jalen Hurts. And remember, they had a first-time head coach last year. They made the playoffs. So they have to do that again. They probably need to win a playoff game, I would say, at least for Hurts to remain as the starter there, because remember, they have the ammo to go up in next year's draft and take a QB if necessary. I really like what the Eagles have done this offseason, because they have a team in place now. They have some guys who are backing up some of their older players who they can bring in, and so they're well placed. So it's up to Jalen Hurts to prove it. I like him. I'm not saying he is a franchise guy, but I think if he can take the next step, the Eagles could have a really good year.
It's like that hybrid sort of thing where he can run and he can pass as well. I if it was my team and we didn't have that one franchise guy, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts and thinking if he can make the next step, the Eagles have got their guy. But it's all about ifs, isn't it, in that division?
Well, I think the AJ Brown trade is another sign another signal from the Eagles that they want to give him all the opportunity to prove that he is the quarterback. And there were some Eagles fans last year that felt, yeah, he had a great season. If only he had certain other players who could step up. Like the Jalen Reagor trade draft pick hasn't really materialised, and the Eagles fans are still discussing over the fact that Jefferson has gone to the Vikings and been so productive. It's a difficult one for me. Like I look at the Eagles last year, addition by subtraction. I suppose this is a strategic move by the head coach that he reduced the number of, OTAs. He's reduced the number of, mandatory training camp sessions, and then when they start the season, they were 2-5, and then they won a lot of games towards the back end of the season. He put that down to freshness of the team because he weren't put into the grilling that other teams would do during training camp. So will that work again? We don't know. Are they the favourites for me? They are because of what they've done, but they're not the favourites in the bookies. The Cowboys are the favourites, but I can still see a good season for them. I think they'll win the division and go to the playoffs. But with the 2 picks next year, they've covered themselves. They put themselves in a position where if it doesn't work out, same scenario with the Dolphins. If they have a good season, make the playoffs again, lose immediately in the wild card, they'll probably make a decision that we're a quarterback away again from being a really strong team and contending again the following season. And that's something where they may look at a quarterback next year in the draft.
Let's go up north, not to Tyrone or Belfast or anything, but let's look at the NFC North. Good plug there. Kirk Cousins. The excuses have started, saying that the defensive play with new defensive coordinator Ed Donatel, good one there, is muddy, and they're already complaining in Minnesota, which is always a good sign going into the season. The division that they're in, when you've got Chicago and Detroit, take away Green Bay. If they already look at getting that second place and try to get a wild card spot, again, Kirk Cousins is in a situation where there is no excuses. He is the Andy Dalton in this season's NFL for me. Quarterback purgatory. I would not start him in a month of Sundays, and I know there's probably content where I've been all in before. I just can't be bothered anymore. Kirk Cousins, I've seen him play last year. No.
Well, Florio constantly calls it purple purgatory for the Vikings, and that's where he is. To me, he's right bang in the middle of the QBs, right? Except the problem is they're paying him like kind of a top 5 QB, especially with the guaranteed money, and that's the issue for the Vikings. Kirk Cousins can be very good, but Kirk Cousins can equally be very bad. He threw probably the worst interception we saw in all of last season. At one point, he threw it there was nobody in the vicinity, and he just chucked it away. He makes baffling decisions. Equally, at other times, he's really gritty, and he'll make throws that amaze you. But the problem is that, again, you kind of win, with Kirk Cousins. You don't win because of Kirk Cousins. You go back even in Jefferson's first year. Remember the hot mic, and they caught him shouting at Cousins. It's a testament to Jefferson's ability, but also what the team thinks of Cousins. That a rookie could shout at his QB like that. I expect the Vikings to be there or thereabouts. Last year, we talked about it. They would have played the 72 Dolphins or the 0-16 Lions. They would have played them in the same way. They would have played them close. I expect more of the same this year.
7-9-ish sort of season for me. Kevin O'Connell was the Rams offensive coordinator, Super Bowl champion with the Rams. Now the head coach of the Vikings. I mean, if they can't incorporate that offense and try and do something, is there
Well, I think he's going to struggle because the quarterback is so inconsistent. Collins pretty much nailed it. There's no consistency with him. 1 week he's up, 1 week he's down. Like I reflect on 2 games last year. They go in, they beat the Packers at home, and it's a ding-dong game, back and forth. But a minute to go, it looks like the Packers are going to win the game. Kirk Cousins drove them down. They get a touchdown. They win the game. Sorry, they get a field goal. But he was under a pressure situation. He managed to drive. They win the game. The following week, they're playing on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are missing Dak Prescott. They're missing a number of players. Everybody said, the Vikings have this. They're going to go on a bit of a run. They lose the game. That's the Vikings. That sums them up. They played the Lions. They lose to the Lions towards the back end of the season. That game was there to be won. I think they overthought the situation at the end. If you recall, they had the ball. They were in the red zone, and they were trying to take all the time off the clock. There's just so many times they've shoot themselves in the foot, and a lot of that is down to quarterback play more so, and also the call playing by the head coach who's now been relieved of his duties. It'll be interesting to see how Kevin O'Connell. He's another one who's coming in with a great recommendation, having worked for McVay. We spoke about head coaches that are now getting jobs because they've worked for McVay. Will he be able to correct the wrongs of that offense? I'm not convinced they will.
And the dangerous thing as well, Colin, is Lions. They're not going to make a massive step this year, but they're going to make maybe a bit of a more step up. Maybe the Bears will as well. Justin Fields is there. They've got a new head coach in Mike Eberflus as well. So this is a situation where the Vikings could maybe take a step back, or they may not. They're the most unpredictable team going.
Yeah, they are, and with in-laws from Minnesota, there's so many stories that they have, and we've seen it time and time again that the Vikings just constant disappointment. They get into positions you think they're going to win, and then no, they let you down. Some brilliant games at times, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, Kevin O'Connell sounds like a lad from County Clare, so great to have him as a head coach in the league. He has a job on his hands. I think it's very difficult, particularly with Rodgers staying with the Packers, and it'll take time to sort out their roster. They went for it. Like, the whole idea for them was, we remember the Case Keenum, the miracle in Minneapolis against the Saints, and they were going to bring in Kirk Cousins, guaranteed money, take the next step. It didn't work. There was a lot of money spent there. I think there's a lot of clearing out to do. He hasn't been able to maybe do the kind of pruning job that we've seen Joe Shane do at the Giants in the same way. So yeah, certainly the Vikings fans that you talk to, they don't have huge expectations for this year.
I would also say the GM is, I wouldn't say he's under pressure, but there's question marks already at this stage from Vikings fans, and rightly so, because like most teams who have a new GM, you can see what the plan is in place. I think most Giants fans would say, yeah, we can see what the thought process is. On the draft night, no one could understand what the Vikings were doing, because they moved from 12 down to 31, and there was teams who then traded below that and got much more value, and then they then moved around again in the second round. Yeah, okay, they brought in players, and everybody's saying right now on paper they look like they're really good players, but the strategy and the thinking behind that was unusual, and we've had numerous people on from the NFL world who couldn't get their head around it either. So he's under pressure, I'd imagine.
Let's just wrap this up by looking at the situation with Kyler Murray, who put that statement out, which was just at this point now. I mean, I still don't get it, but more importantly, they open up against the Chiefs, week 2 Raiders, week 3 Rams, week 4 Panthers, week 5 Eagles, week 6 Seahawks, week 7 Saints, and then they play the Vikings. Taking that whole conversation with Kyler Murray, Colin, and Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, what's going on there? Should Kyler maybe just stop writing notes on his notepad on his iPhone and actually get into OTAs and start doing something, or what's your thoughts?
Well, ordinarily you'd say a Cliff team does really well in the first 7 weeks, but they've got to do it without Hopkins, which is a nightmare for them. They've lost a number of other players. And look, I'll keep going back to it because the last time we saw Kyler Murray on the field, he was sitting dejected as the Rams put a beat down on his team, and you had 3 Super Bowl winners on the Manning cast, a Hall of Famer, and probably in Eli and Russell Wilson, 2 future Hall of Famers, saying that he should be getting up, that this is not how you lead a team. I suppose the Cards have done their best to try to refute the leadership stuff, but when you have people with those sorts of credentials saying that's not how I would lead the team, and they've gone and done it and won Super Bowls, that's kind of telling. It's a huge year for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. The GM is under pressure, the head coach is under pressure, the quarterback is under pressure. They're not the same side they were last year. It could look very different in Arizona at this time next year.
Super Bowl in Arizona in February. Are you going?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be there. The Cardinals won't.
We'll be there. That's a very confident yes.
I can book a flight tomorrow.
Book the flights to Arizona. It's going to be interesting next February. Yeah, you're saying the Cardinals aren't going to be there. Why not? Yeah, we haven't even thrown a ball yet.
I find it surprising that Cliff Kingsbury got the contract he did. He's shown over the past 2 years consistently over the course of 2 seasons that they start off well, and then when it comes to the crunch games, they can't get it done. Like, if you reflect on week 17, they actually could have won the division, and they lost to the Seahawks, who at that stage they had bottomed there. Their season was over, and they were at home. The results had gone their way in the other game in SoFi. They could have won the division. They should have won the division. But the Kyler Murray thing is fine because what's happened now is he has turned up. It's mandatory, but he did turn up to the OTA recently, which was optional. I think they've done that on the basis that his agent and the GM have had a conversation, and they've made it. They've come to the realization that the contract will get done. So it's kind of right. I'll trust you to get this done, and I will show up. But I still think the team is lacking without Hopkins. We saw when he missed games last year, when he was injured, they weren't the same team. They brought in Hollywood Brown. For me, giving away a 4th round pick for him was an unusual move. He's been productive for the Ravens, but I don't think he's at that level where he's justified a 4th round pick. To me, that was a sign of desperation that they need players that are going to help. And for me, with the division and the Rams, and I still think the 49ers will be strong, for me, they won't make the playoffs this year.
It's been good crack chatting to you, lads.
They're coming to the Aviva Stadium this August to face the Nebraska.
Folks, our guest on this week's Irish NFL show. Fantastic to have a guy born in Dublin who has the 6th most field goals in the season, with 18 and went 37-52 during his college career, including the game-winning 39-yard field goal to upset Wisconsin in the 2019 college football season, formerly of the University of Illinois. Currently with the Los Angeles Chargers and bidding to become one of the first Irish NFL active players in 37 years. It's an honor to welcome James Mccourt to the show. James, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great, guys. I appreciate you, getting me on here, and really excited to talk with you guys and chat about football and everything.
James, Michael kind of alluded to it in the intro there. It's 37 years since Neil O'Donoghue was kicking with the Cardinals, and in fairness to Neil, he had quite a decent career, nearly a decade kicking in the league. I suppose how you've obviously had a lot of media attention. I think even going back, a few years, Balls, 40 to 42, the Irish Times, etc. How aware were you of Neil? Was it something that you were aware of kind of his kicking? And for you, what would it mean to have the opportunity, if it was to come to pass, to be the first Irish person in the NFL in 37 years?
Yeah, I heard of Neil I want to say when I was in middle school or high school, I looked up just out of curiosity, if there's been any Irishmen that have played American football, and definitely came across his name. But yeah, it's just an added bonus to the whole thing. I'm very proud of my Irish heritage, and it's really cool that, it's really cool that there's two of us that are knocking on the door right now. The chances of that are pretty slim. And, but it's just an added bonus to the whole thing that I can, represent my home and my roots at such a big stage over here. So it's pretty incredible.
James, really take us back to, I suppose, the early stage when you got into the American football. Did you play in the other positions before you cemented yourself as a kicker, and the whole Illinois piece there? How did that come to pass?
Yeah, so it's funny. I came over and I played flag football growing up until about, I want to say, 8th grade, and I wanted a little more contact, and I was kind of a bigger kid growing up, a little chubby, so they threw me in on the O-line my first time out there, and I didn't stick long at that position. I think I was like left guard or something, and I just got tossed around a little bit, and I think we had tryouts one day, just who could kick a ball, and I had a soccer background, so I decided to put my hand up, and then it kind of went from there. And I was very fortunate with how it all kind of, panned out from there on out, because I had a kicking coach in 8th grade that ended up being the special teams coordinator at the high school I went to at St. Thomas Aquinas. And, it's such a powerhouse down there. So many guys come out of there all the time. And I just worked with him. His name's Tim Conrad, and he helped me out a bunch, just getting off the ground going and then getting recruited. And then, I didn't really, St. Thomas was such a good program that it was so competitive, so many good kickers coming in and out of there. I didn't really see a lot of playing time until my senior year. So even at that stage, it was like college. It took me a little bit to get going, but my senior year, I want to say it was October my senior year, Illinois came calling, and I pretty much committed right on the spot. Not many high school kickers get scholarships right out. A lot get preferred walk-ons coming out, and it was an opportunity I couldn't really pass up. Just because I think there was an offer out to another kicker, and I just wanted to make sure that I grabbed it. But yeah, that's kind of how it went, the sped up version. But definitely a lot of stories on the road to it. But yeah, it was great. I love my time up in Champaign.
It's been a fantastic journey so far, James, and long may it continue. Can you maybe talk to us about the lead up to the NFL draft? We always hear about the rookie pro days, and obviously as a player whose position may be further down the list in terms of what round they may go in, or maybe in your case as an undrafted rookie, did you get the opportunity to work out for teams prior to it? Did teams come to a pro day or in Illinois, or did any particular team originally maybe reach out and show interest even before the draft so you had an idea?
Yeah. I can bring you back to the whole thing. So the rookie year is tough because your season doesn't really end. You go from the last game. We had a great last game. We beat Northwestern, our rival. First time I beat them, my time there. So that really was, an unbelievable way to finish off my college career. But right from there on out, you kind of get your mind a little rest, but what's coming down the road. it's a long journey. There are 3 or 4 months, and those are very important months. So I knew going into that process that there was a lot of kickers in this class. It was just from COVID year, red shirts, fifth years, good seniors like, Cade York, who came out of LSU. I think he might have been a junior. Like, I'm 24. I'm pretty sure he's 21. So you can basically see there's 3 or 4 years of kickers that are coming out in one class. So I knew going in it was going to be a very competitive process. And, I just kind of put my head down and decided just to attack it. I signed with a really good agency, Rob Roche, and at RSR. They have a lot of kickers on there with them. Justin Tucker's with them, Chase McLaughlin, the guys that was ahead of me at Illinois. So he really set me off on the right foot. But yeah, you really want to get a Senior Bowl invite. There's the top 3 of them. There's the Reese's one, the East-West Shrine game, and then the NFLPA game. And I, luckily enough, got the NFLPA invite. So right then I kind of knew maybe some teams had a little bit of interest in me. I knew going into my senior year, so I'll take it back even before that. Year prior to COVID year, my first year starting, I just wanted to start. I just wanted to play. NFL wasn't really there for me. Obviously it was my goal, but my goal at the time was just to start. And then I had a pretty good year, had some long kicks, and then all of a sudden I was put on Mel Kiper's list of guys after the season. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then COVID year happened, and I played maybe 5 games, and I could have come out there, but I was told by a couple people to stay back, stick another year, and finish strong, and you'll be in the running with all the other guys. So I decided to do that, and I came back and had a solid year, I think. And and then I guess the NFLPA game, I was really looking to go out there. I had a really good week of practice in front of the scouts, and I think that helped a lot. Good interview prep and all of that. And one thing led to the next. You have your pro day. So I went back up to Champaign. I had a pro day that went really well. I had a lot of prep for that. I actually went up to Buffalo and worked with Adam Tanowski up there. He's a kicking coach, and he really prepped me mentally for what the day is going to be like. It's super intense. It's a crazy environment because you're in there. You walk into so you go back to campus and you walk in to the indoor where we were kicking, and there's just 40 scouts there just with their clipboards and just waiting for you to kick. And it's so unlike a game. You can't really compare it to a game because you kick 13, 14 field goals in a row. In a game, you go on, you kick. If you make it, it's good. If you miss it, you're sitting there with that. You got to digest everything. So I don't really understand how you can really get the best out of a kicker in those situations, but they want to see you do it in that. And I did well there. And then after that, some teams come calling with private workouts, and I guess we kind of narrowed it down with my agent that the teams on draft day and the teams that would really have the most interest, I think, were the Bears, Colts, Saints, Rams, and I forget another team that really showed the most interest in the Dolphins, I think, through the process. And I honestly didn't have too much conversation with the Chargers prior to that. So that was pretty interesting. Definitely.
Yeah, it's funny how it can work out. We had Justin Simmons on previously, and he said that prior to being drafted, he hadn't had that much contact with the Broncos, and that's where he ended up. Now, just to kind of piggyback a little bit on that last question in terms of the kicking, because obviously kind of doing the prep for this, I was reading some of your interviews, and you talked about how you'd read Ronan O'Gara's book, who's now going on to have success as a head coach himself, Johnny Wilkinson's book, and some of the kind of interviews with Sexton, with Dan Carter, just kind of interested in the mental side of things. Because as you said, if you make the kick, it's great. Everybody's carrying you off the field. If you don't, you have to kind of sit with it and digest it. So how do you approach it? Because obviously kickers have different ways of going about it. So just kind of really interested in your approach to that, James.
Yeah, of course. So I think I can kind of attest to my, increase in accuracy and all of that from my junior to my senior year with how I attack my mental process in the off season and even through the season. And that kind of opened my eyes to how important that is. And, you have to have a short memory, whether it's a good kick or a bad kick, because in golf, the previous shot has nothing to do with the next shot. This doesn't, if it's a great drive, it doesn't really matter because you still have to, that shot has no effect just on any way on the next one, only mentally it does. Only if you let it. So you have to learn how to, take your good kicks, bottle them, and use it for later, and kind of, forget your bad kicks pretty fast. And I kind of look back on my statistics on my junior year, and I kind of had a trend that I would make 3 kicks in a row, then maybe I'd miss one. So I was very and that happened throughout the season. So I kind of realized, I kind of did a little, I dug deep and a little self, talk or whatever. And I realized that I kind of got seduced by success, is how I like to put it. So it was, I'd feel good about how I was kicking, feel good. And maybe I would, get lazy with my process because I was letting the previous kicks affect it, even if I made them, and then I would end up missing, and I would build up on that again. And then, so it was this pattern. So I kind of didn't want to get seduced by success. It was just something that I kind of wrote down, and I wrote it down every day, just in my notebook, about how that was my goal. And it was part of the process. They always talk in every book that I read about it, everyone was, they always talk about the process, the process, not the result. And when I started going into practice and into games, and my good reps were the ones that I didn't even look at the result of the kick. It was just, did I look at did I focus on my process? My process there every kick, and then I would be happy with it no matter the result. And and then it ended up, the results came. There was good results out of that. So you have to stick with your process through the downs, the ups and the downs. And I found that very important. I found that to be true in a lot of the guys' books, with kicking, with golf. Reading a book by Dr. Bob Bertels right here, How Champions Think. And it's kind of the same thing, it's a very short-term memory, good and bad, being able to bottle up the good things, but not let it affect the next one in a bad way. So that's kind of a brief way of putting it. I could go in for, I love that stuff. I think that's super interesting. And, any young athlete out there, if they can that's an edge, you always want to try and find an edge and be an edge finder. And I found that working on my mental side was definitely a way I could find an edge and definitely make some more kicks.
James, we were fortunate to have the Chargers GM, Tom Telesco, on the show not too long after you were drafted, and he spoke very highly of you. He was full of praise for you, albeit at a very early stage in terms of the OTAs. You've obviously progressed further since then with the OTAs and obviously the mandatory training camp. How have you found that you're settling in with the new environment? And is there any particular players of, I suppose, the veterans that are acknowledging the rookies and helping them out at this early stage?
Yeah, the environment in the NFL, you can never really fully prepare for it, and everyone says you can't, because it's something that you've never seen before, haven't experienced, and you just have to go through it as a rookie. You're only a rookie once, so you have to take in everything that you get. But it's amazing, how it's just run, how clean it is, how efficient everything is, and I can only say great things about the Chargers and their organization, and how coming in as an outsider and now being fully into in the building for a month and a half or so, it's incredible how efficient it's run. I think every day you go out there and you see some of the guys at practice, and I'm a bit mesmerized, because, you see these guys you watch on TV every Sunday for the past 5 years, and you're just like, wow, this is pretty cool. You kind of have to pinch yourself a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's the kicking is the same. It's the same thing that I've done for my whole life. There's the yellow pipes are still there, and the hashes are actually brought in a little bit, so the kicks are a little bit straighter. But I just approach every practice like that, and I approach every practice like it's my Super Bowl, because it pretty much is at this stage of my career. As an undrafted rookie, you really have to make a good impression on the coaches every way you do in the front office, because they're looking. They want to see what you're made of in these situations. They want to put you in tough situations, and everything that you do is being scrutinized and evaluated. So it's very important that you're on your toes, but in a good way. They don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but they definitely want you to feel their presence. And no, but it's been really cool. It's been an awesome experience. I'm super happy with how it's gone so far, and I'm also super fortunate with the coaches I've had. Coach Ficken and Coach Gold are the two guys there. Coach Gold, we call him Beep. He's the assistant, and he's Robbie Gold's brother, so he has a lot of insight into the kicking, and he's helped me out a bunch from technical side. And Coach Ficken, he's awesome. He's his first year. He's with the Vikings for a long time. I can't say enough good things about him. But also the vets in the room that we have, Dustin, he's an awesome guy. He's helped me out a bunch already just with the process of being a professional, and I've just been watching him. I probably asked like so many questions. They're probably pretty tired of me at this point. But him, Josh Harris, he's a Pro Bowl long snapper, so he's the best you can have in the game right now. And J.K. Scott, the punter, he's doing really well. So it's been really cool to see how those guys work and just how professional they are. And it's definitely cool because you kind of forget those guys have families, and a lot of they're moving their families out to California. They have all these responsibilities that seem so far away from me right now, but I can only tip my hat to them because they're really nice, and they've included me in everything they've done. So so far it's been a really smooth experience. I'm very excited to get back out there for training camp though. So.
You've sort of answered this question a little bit already, James, but obviously being with the Chargers, and they've made some really interesting moves in this offseason, especially in free agency. Never mind bringing yourself in. What's the vibe like there? I mean, how confident are these guys of maybe taking the West this year? Because they've really done a lot in the offseason to suggest that they could be right up there even come February in Arizona next year.
Yeah, I can't talk too much about them as a team just because I still feel like I'm very new to it, and I don't want to say something because I'm just a rookie and everything. But it's if there's one thing I can say is that they just know how to attack every day, and they're super professional. Everyone is just you have to be at this stage, and the roster. I don't know too much about the NFL, but the roster seems very complete in my eyes. But they have a chip on their shoulder. Definitely, you can tell from last season, and it's also a very new team. Coach Staley mentioned the team meeting that there's 50 guys in the room that weren't there last year. So it's a lot of the guys. They know it's a new team. They've had a lot of they've had a very active off season in the signing and free agent signings and all that. So I can tell the coach are really pumped up. They definitely and the players, I think they're super hungry. They seem and I'm obviously hoping I'm going to work really hard to be part of that team because I think they can do something really special. But no, I can't say enough good things about all of them.
You mentioned earlier, James, that obviously you played a lot of soccer when you were younger, and we're recording this on the 6th-year anniversary of Robbie Brady's header against Italy. And if I take you back to 2019 and the walk-off win, upsetting number 6 seed Wisconsin, and it just exploded. I mean, it was everywhere. It was all over the internet. It got and I just want to know, like, what was that experience like? So everybody wanted to talk to you because it had been such a big upset. I think I saw somewhere that like into the fourth quarter, they were still at like 98-99% win probability. You guys go and get the win, and then all of a sudden, like, all of the media is there in your face, but not just obviously the US media, but I think you had a conference call with Irish media afterwards. So suddenly everybody wants a piece of you. What was that like?
It was definitely cool. I definitely had my 15 minutes, but no, it was an unbelievable experience. Actually, like it's really cool to go back to and think about now. At the time, I didn't know what was going on. I was probably in over my head a little bit, but it was really cool. It was just nice, to see my grandparents back home, my family back home could see me in the newspaper. That meant a lot to me. My granddad, who passed away a year after that, he got to see me in the newspaper. That in the Irish Times, he reads every day. So it was just stuff like that meant the world to me. I never thought that football would grant me an opportunity to have a presence back in Ireland. I still think my cousins and my aunts and uncles back there still don't really fully understand how I have a presence back there. But it's I remember my grandma that lives in Dublin, and then she told me that she was I think she said that she was like stopped because of her last name and my name. And she's lived in Dublin or in Ireland for her whole life, and I only lived there for 8 years. And she got recognized or not recognized or whatever, noticed for her last name because of me. And it was just some really funny stories came out of it. I could definitely go on and on about it, but it's that by itself, the kick itself, putting having the team win against Wisconsin, number 6. Our program needed that at that time, but also everything that came along with that was really, really cool. It was that's all I can really say about it. It's a really cool experience, and I hope I can do something again like that again in the future for another team. But that was special for sure.
James, you mentioned relations back home, and one familiar face over here is Leinster's Gary Ringrose, who's a cousin of yours. Have you sought any advice from him, or has he given you any advice on the other side in terms of the career, or is it purely congratulations at this stage?
Yeah, right now it's pretty much all congratulations. Just a couple texts here and there about kind of comparing schedules and stuff like that, and the hard work that goes into it. But he's he's my cousin. I've only really met him, I think, a handful of times in person. It's been a while since I've met him in person. It was before, I think he was. I don't think he was still in secondary school. But I think he was just knocking on the door of the Leinster. I don't think he had his Irish cap yet. But it's just cool. It's pretty cool to say that. Definitely gets me some street cred back home. I can say that Gary Ringrose is my cousin. But he's definitely someone I'll probably ask questions in the future about stuff that's going on, about how to be, because he's so professional, obviously, and rugby over there is so big now, and he's a big name for sure. But right now it's pretty much just back and forth on Instagram. Nothing too crazy over there.
Big shout out to your family, cousins watching this back home in Ireland. How's the form, folks? Just finally, James, Daniel Whelan, Dan's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks, which I guess for Irish fans, for fans across Europe that are willing to see players succeed in the league, it's fantastic. Really appreciate both yourself and Dan making time for us. Have you been discussing much things with Daniel? Have you had a chance to maybe meet up or talk to him about the journey so far, or is that something that you plan to do in the future?
Yeah, actually, so I haven't reached out to Dan. It's definitely something I want to do, just once everything kind of settles with training camp and all of that. But it was funny. We went out to. I was out in Arizona for a Coach Zahner over here. He runs like a kicking combine, and it's something that was in the process of the pre-draft. Also, I forgot to mention. And you go out there, and Coach Zahner, he's kind of a very renowned name in the specialist community over here. And you go out there, get graded, and you do like kind of over a weekend. He gives you kind of a draft grade, and he talks to the scouts. So I went out there, and Dan and myself did very well. And I actually was in the same elevator as Dan, but I had no idea he was Irish. I had no idea. So I noticed him. He was tall, and I was like, this guy kind of looks Irish for some reason. Like he had kind of an Irish way about him. And but it was funny. I had no idea that he was until kind of I want to say my dad mentioned something a couple weeks before the draft that there was an Irish guy out of he's at UC Davis. Yeah. So which is pretty cool. And I heard he was really talented. Obviously, he went to a little bit of a smaller school, so I wasn't too familiar with him. I didn't ever saw him on TV or anything like that. But I know my punter at school, Blake, he mentioned that their UC Davis had this amazing punter, and I was like, oh, cool. And just turns out he was Irish. I'm pretty sure he's more Irish than me. I mean, in quotation, I'm pretty sure he moved over here when he was, I think he was older than I was. So it's definitely cool. I definitely want to reach out to him and just kind of touch base. I think my dad wants to reach out to his dad and stuff like that. But no, it's pretty cool. It's pretty incredible. The two of us come out in the same year, and yeah.
Well, fingers crossed. We might see, a couple of Irish flags on an NFL field this year. We want to wish you the very best. I saw a really interesting stat that said of the 90-man rosters, 57% were drafted, but 43% of the 93-man rosters are undrafted. And as a Broncos fan and a guy who was with the Chargers, Chris Harris Jr. Had a pretty good career having gone undrafted. So listen, you've been really generous with your time, James. With just continued success and all the very best for the future.
Oh, cheers, guys. I really appreciate it. And in the future, if you guys want to, get on again, just let me know. Definitely, I enjoy doing this, and have a lot of questions for you guys for sure. But I appreciate you guys having me on.